This is Sean King from Your Mac Life, our website, yourmaclifeshow.com. I'm really offended by this whole Apple pulls porn from the iTunes store. Are you? I bet my offendedness is different from yours. Take a moment and think about it. Are you offended because you can no longer get porn on the App Store? Are you offended because there was porn on the App Store? I'm offended because when I was a kid, you had to work for your porn. We didn't have the internet. We had to go down to the local drugstore and sneak a peek at Playboy without the pharmacist seeing us. Or we had to look under our dad's side of the bed for back issues. Or go to a friend's house whose brother had a stash back in the rec room. We didn't get porn delivered to us. Look, this is a tempest in a teapot, and it's entirely of Apple's own making, and I have no sympathy for them. Apple has said, we have decided to remove any overtly sexual content from the App Store, which includes your application. That's the email they're sending out to various developers. Okay, look, most of those apps that they've been removing were stupid and juvenile. As Craps.com says, most were tame. You'd see more titillating content in a Maxim magazine. That's absolutely true. Not to mention, if you're getting your app from the App Store, you already have an iPhone or an iPod Touch. Guess what? Go to Playboy.com or Pornhub.com. You'll get all the porn you can stand. As usual, there are multiple sides to this story. Apple has said in a letter to affected developers, quote, the App Store continues to evolve, and as such, we can constantly refine our guidelines. Your application contains content that we had originally believed to be suitable for distribution. However, we have recently received numerous complaints from our customers about this type of content and have changed our guidelines accordingly. We have decided to remove any overtly sexual content from the App Store. If you believe you can make the necessary changes so that your app complies with our recent changes, we encourage you to do so and resubmit for review. Sincerely, iPhone App Review. And there's a clause in the iPhone Software Developer Kit that states, applications must not contain any obscene, pornographic, offensive, or defamatory content or materials of any kind. Okay, that's fair enough, but as TechCrunch says, it's still a disturbing move on Apple's part. Quote, sexy applications were already blocked at one point until Apple specifically changed its policies to begin letting them in. It was only a little over a year ago that the words boobs and booty in any application's description simply weren't even allowed. But Apple made the conscious decision to lift that ban. In effect, Apple sent a message to developers that on a platform where the rules are nebulous and anything innovative is risky, these applications were safe. Now it's changing its mind, end quote. Twiddle Twag on Twitter said to me, retailers make decisions about what items to carry all the time. There's no right to be in a store. Seems like a non-issue to me. And he's right. It certainly should be a non-issue. And if Apple had stuck to its original policy, this story would never have happened. But there's another issue involved. Apple supposedly has an adult content rating on the App Store. It works, in theory, by not allowing you to download certain apps unless you are of the appropriate age. And parental controls can be set so that children can't download objectionable material. Sounds like a good plan, doesn't it? Except that it sucks. See, Apple says, I quote, whenever we receive customer complaints about objectionable content, we review them. If we find these apps contain inappropriate material, we remove them and request the developer make any necessary changes. Now, a series of these complaints can be found on Apple's support pages. One of the posts states that Apple's parental controls don't work as advertised. The parental control settings in iTunes do stop me from purchasing the app, complains one Apple customer. The Buy App, Get App button is grayed out, so I cannot get the app, but I'm still able to preview the app, including screenshots of graphic content along with detailed descriptions. End quote. Jiva DeVoe, an author of iPhone development books, says, quote, regardless of parental controls, 17-plus rated apps still show up when casually browsing the App Store. Unlike music and movies, these apps typically have icons, names, and screenshots that border on the obscene just by themselves. It's gotten so bad that it's actually not possible to allow a typical young child to browse the App Store by themselves without them being assaulted by various boobs, softcore porn apps. So even though you have parental control set up on your iPod on your iPod Touch or your iPhone for your kid can still see the apps. A TechCrunch commenter says, I expect that when I put a setting on an iPod or an iPhone that my 5, 8, 10-year-old can surf apps for fun without asking me, Daddy, is boobs a dirty word? Which also brings up a point of another TechCrunch commenter. They say, quote, I just don't get Americans' puritanical view on sex. It's okay to show a guy's head getting smashed in, but it's not okay to show the natural act of sex. Explosions and body parts flying? Good. BJs? Bad. Torture and mutilation? Good. Private parts? Bad. And that's the main issue I have with this story. Apple's actions are capricious, inconsistent, and hypocritical. After all, as Technologizer.com points out, the iTunes Store has movies with 6 of the top 12 nude scenes ever filmed, as rated on the website Mr. Skin. It has 5 of the 8 most sweartastic movies of all time. It's full of music whose very titles will offend many people. And all this stuff can be purchased from iTunes and transferred to the very same iPhones that will tragically be denied jiggle eye boobs from now on, end quote. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not censorship as defined in the Constitution. It's still Apple trying to arbitrate between what is merely titillating or prurient and what can be considered objectionable or truly pornographic. 64 years ago, Justice Potter Stewart famously said pornography was hard to define, but I know it when I see it. And that's part of the problem. What you may find pornographic, I may find sexy. What you may find objectionable, I may find erotic. Here are 2 solutions to the problem. One is simply to create a section of the App Store called Adult Content. Anything that is 17 plus rated goes there, and if you have parental control set up on your iPhone, your kid can't even see that section of the store. Developers get to continue developing these apps, and Apple continues to make money off of them. The second solution is this. Let's do away with descriptions of these kinds of apps as porn or objectionable. Those words are too hard to define. Let's just mark these apps as stupid. Stupid, useless apps don't get on the App Store. I'm sure most of us can easily define stupid apps. Anything to do with farting. Anything with simple pics of women or men in bikinis or Speedos. Anything that has no value whatsoever, like the I Am Rich apps. It's not a perfect solution, but when it comes to this subject matter, nothing is. How consistent will Apple be with this overtly sexual content policy? I bet removals will continue to be arbitrary and subjective. Just look at the App Store as of today. I easily this morning downloaded the free Maxim and Sports Illustrated apps, and if I'd wanted to pay for it, the Playboy app, Victoria's Secret All Access, and Hooters are still available. These apps certainly contain overt sexual content, yet still remain for sale. It's simple, really. If you want porn on your iPhone, all you need to do is download some porn videos and play them. Apple doesn't need to sell porn in its store any more than Kmart and Target aren't required to sell porn in their stores. But my real concern is that if Apple becomes the ham-fisted arbiter of what is and isn't pornographic, look at recent history. Catcher in the Rye was called pornographic, as was Of Mice and Men and many other classics. It's a totally inconsistent and hypocritical attitude when it comes to which content it's willing to sell. Have exposed breasts in an R-rated movie? Sell it. Jiggling boobs in a silly iPhone app? Banned. Apple previously blocked an iPhone app that allowed users to access the Kama Sutra. What happens if it gets too many complaints about iTunes making it too easy to purchase books and magazines with sexual content? It's a slippery slope that Apple did not need to go down. But once you go down that slippery slope, you either go all the way down it or stay off it completely. In other words, you let everything on or nothing on. You can't find a happy medium when it comes to what people will describe as pornographic or objectionable. Because we can't define those words, we can't have apps that are those things to everybody. And you know what? And for you folks who need to get porn on your iPhone, there are lots of places on the interwebs to get some lovely porn, and for free even. Like me as a kid, go out there and work for your porn, damn it.